Hello everyone, it's Fiona Kennedy here with another story for you, because you know that stories aren't just for bedtime. I've got a story today about a moose. Now, do you know what a moose is? If you're in Scotland, a moose is a wee mouse. And I used to say, there's a moose loose about the hoose. But if you're not in Scotland, a moose is part of the deer family. It's a big animal like a deer with big antlers, and they're usually found in Canada, North America, and in Europe it would be called the Eurasian elk, but they're big, quite friendly animals, I would say. And today's story is about a little boy called Wilfred who has his own moose, or so he thinks. I'm going to put on my red glasses today so that I can see and tell you my story. Wilfred owned a moose. There he is. He hadn't always owned a moose. The moose came to him a while ago and he knew, just knew, that it was meant to be his. He thought he would call him Marcel, very French. And look, he's put a label on the antlers that says Marcel. He began following Marcel, explaining the rules of how to be a good pet. Much of the time it seemed as though the moose wasn't listening, but Wilfred knew he was. Mostly because he followed Rule 4 very well. Rule 4 was not making too much noise while Wilfred plays his record collection. And there is Wilfred with his record player. And look how well the moose is behaving. Sometimes the moose wasn't a very good pet. He generally ignored rule number 7, going whichever way Wilfred wants to go. The moose had a very good sense of direction, and Wilfred did not. And because the moose was particularly poor on Rule 7, subsection B, maintaining a certain proximity to home, Wilfred quickly learned to bring some string along on their outings so he could find his way back again. Can you see this? I wonder if the string is going to bring him home. Sometimes the moose was an excellent pet. He had no trouble with Rule 11, providing shelter from the rain. That's quite funny. Look where Wilfred goes when it's raining. Because the moose is so big, Wilfred could get right under his belly. Or Rule 16, knocking down things that are out of Wilfred's reach. Well, that's very handy if you're hungry and you want an apple. The moose was big enough to knock down the apples. Good work! One day, as Wilfred discussed their plans for the coming year on a particularly long walk, he made a terrible discovery. Someone else thought they owned the moose. Rodrigo, you're back! Look. Oh no! Wilfred was dumbstruck. The moose was Marcel, not Rodrigo. The old lady was mistaken, and Wilfred thought it only proper that he correct her. "This moose belongs to me," he explained. How could this be? How could it be Marcel and Rodrigo? And to prove it, he called Marcel, Marcel. But the moose did not respond. He seemed more interested in the old lady. Look, she had something for him. Do you think that could be why? That's a mystery. Embarrassed and enraged, that means he was a bit cross, Wilfred rushed off home. But in his haste, and miles from anywhere, he tripped over his string and got tangled up. Can you see that? He tripped over the string that was going to help him to get home. And Marcel wasn't with him. And there he lay. Look how dark it is. All tangled up. Wilfred was beginning to get a little bit worried. It was past home time now, and the monsters would be out soon. No. Oh, he had just ruled out the last of his options when along came the moose. Well, look at all these different options that he was thinking about. Can you see? I would have been lying there thinking, what can I do? Can I cut myself free? Is someone going to come and get me? How am I going to get out of this mess? But fortunately, the moose came along and performed Rule 73 brilliantly, rescuing your owner from perilous situations. Look what he did. He picked him up with his antlers. Isn't that good? That's when antlers come in very handy. He's dangling there now. All was forgiven, and perhaps Wilfred admitted he'd never really owned the moose anyway. With that in mind, he and the moose reached a compromise. Do you know what that means, a compromise? That means an agreement. They found a way to agree. The moose would agree to all of Wilfred's rules. Whenever it suited him. That's funny. And then look what happens. The moose goes there and this man says, Dominic, you're back. And you brought me an apple. My goodness, I wonder who that man is. Because he thought he owned the moose as well. So he was called Marcel, Rodrigo, and Dominic. And maybe the moose just belonged to himself. So I hope you enjoyed that story. I've got a really good story for you the next time. So come back and visit me on Stories Aren't Just for Bedtime. Bye.